Hi everybody, my name is Lisa Harriton and I am so excited to be with you guys today from my home studio. And well, I should say half of it. There's another half on that side. Um, and thanks for joining me today. We are live and I want to tell you a little bit about who I am today. We're going to talk about a lot of things, but I want to make sure first and foremost that you know that I want to interact with you. Um, I'm gonna get these live comments pulled up over here. Feel free to talk to me, ask me any questions that you have as we're going, or if you want me to elaborate on something, I'm here. So let's go. Anyways, like I said, my name is Lisa Harriton, and I am the department head for the piano program at LACM. And I want to talk to you today about building your dream keyboard career from home. And what better place to do that from where I do all my work and all my dreaming from my home studio here. And I want to accomplish three main things today. Let me put my glasses on for this. Um, I want to give you a better understanding of the different types of career opportunities that are available to you as a keyboard player, and and also give you greater insight into the different facets of the industry, so that you can decide which of those speak to you, and better guide your career that way. When I went to school, I'm old, very old. When I went to school, there were two choices. There was classical, and if you were weird like me, there was jazz. And that was it. I didn't have a contemporary music program to learn all of these things. So I had to learn on the job, and it took me a while. I feel like it took me a long while to get a grasp of the things I know now. But that said, it's such a special thing that we have here at LACM that all of these things I'm going to share with you today, we go in greater detail in the keyboard program. All of these things are really built into our piano program. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about how to get you better plugged in and how to get you to achieve those goals that you have. We're going to open it up for questions. Sound good, everyone? Okay, cool. What I want to do is tell you a little bit about myself and what I do. I live here, literally. I live above the top floor of my house is where I live, and then down here is where we work. And I am so fortunate to get to do what I do, and I've had a very varied, multifaceted, eclectic career. And I wanted to tell you a little bit about it. I started out playing classical piano, and I went through this rigorous program, this school based in London called the Associated Board of the Royal Schools of Music, and it's a really long name, or ABRSM is what we called it. And I went through their program. I stopped after age 16. I graduated from their school, and you could go on if you want to get a teaching degree and stuff like that. By the time I graduated, I was so grateful for my classical music education, but I was really getting into jazz, and my brother was playing a lot of jazz, and then so I had all these influences, but I was playing classical, but my way of getting into jazz was singing it. So I was singing a lot of Ella Fitzgerald, and I was performing at jazz competitions in high school, but yet I still had these classical piano chops. So other than reading music that was on a page, when it came to playing keys, if you gave me a chord chart, I would have been completely lost how to play, like form triads and connect them. I had this longing to play jazz because I could hear all these things, and I was studying these recordings and singing them, and copying these sax solos with my voice, And because of my training and my classical background, I understood the intervallic relationships I was hearing, but still there was like such a lack of understanding of how to play that. I bring that up because some of the keyboard students that I see in our piano program, they have a strong classical background. So they have an incredible foundation when they come here, but they have, like I had, a very limited understanding of popular music, and I was very one-dimensional, and there was all this music I was hearing, and yet all I could play was classical. So I bring that up to say, in our piano program here at the school, that is something that I'm passionate about. Where whoever comes to the program, I want to help them become as versatile as possible. My brother was at CSUN studying jazz, and I wanted to study jazz too. And I think it was after 6 months I was in the B band. I just was living, sleeping, eating, breathing jazz. That was just all I cared about. And there was this freedom of expression that I had never had before. When you're playing classical music, as amazing as it is, and how awesome it is that it gave me the technique. So when I went to jazz, I had great facility and dexterity, and anything that I heard, I could just instantly play on a technical level, which was great. And I understood scales and I understood modes, and so so it didn't take me too long to catch up. I met an instructor. I took a lesson with an instructor that was a hero of mine, and he taught at USC, and he said, "You should be at USC, and you should study jazz there." And so I just had a feeling. I went there, and still there was no contemporary music program. I just studied jazz because I loved it, and I wanted to go deeper and farther into my understanding, and just something led me there. Jazz requires communication with other musicians at such a high level, and it's such an incredible thing to language to speak, because it is the most complicated technically it's the most complicated harmonic language, and you can I feel like having a certain level of mastery over that vocabulary really gave me such a good foundation. So when I went other places, I everything felt doable and easier, and there was so much that I could pull from with the classical training and the jazz. And anyway, so long story short, I graduate from college, and I'm thinking, I am going to be, because I was singing jazz and playing it, I'm going to be the next Diana Krall, which Diana Krall, for those of you that don't know her, is a jazz singer, and she accompanies herself on the piano. She's a great jazz player, singer. That was where I thought I was going. And then, now this is really an important part of my journey, and I feel like it is such a common story for so many musicians that get their big break. So many times, your big break comes from either a teacher that recommended you for a gig, or a friend from school that remembered you. Oh, she's good at that thing, I'm going to recommend her. Or and that was the case for me. My first big break came from that friend from college recommended me for this tour with an artist that I had never heard of. Turns out he was the lead singer for a rock band called Jane's Addiction, a really famous rock band. But I didn't know who that was. I don't know if I'd even heard Jimi Hendrix. I was just in my jazz world. So I went to the audition. Now I would go research the artist, and I would even go maybe dressing the part. I would go listening to the material, getting a sense of the tone, the sound, what keyboard sounds to have. I just went there with this confidence, like, I could play giant steps. I could play Coltrane solo. I'm sure I can do this. It's rock music, which is, which was silly of me. I had so much to learn. Anyway, so I go there, and then I didn't get the job, um, and a couple days later, I got a phone call from, I think it was from Jimmy Chamberlin, the drummer of the Smashing Pumpkins. I'd heard of him because of the jazz world, because he's a jazz fan, and my brother was a huge Smashing Pumpkins fan. Their keyboard player fell through, or they were having a hard time finding someone, and that Perry Farrell said, I've got the girl for you. All that said, I wasn't the right look, right vibe for him, but he recommended me to Billy Corgan, so that was kind of cool. So then, so like sight unseen, I still can't believe that happened. They flew me out, and then and I met Billy, and we had a really good laugh about that recommendation. He knew that I had a lot to learn in that world, but yet I could tell there was something he saw in me, and he saw something in me I didn't even see in myself. So I had no keyboard programming experience. So I went there with an M Audio controller that was like this big, and it came in a cardboard box, and that's how I carried it on the plane, and by computer, and that was it. And I had Logic, and I was just learning how to use it, and or maybe it was GarageBand. No, I think it was Logic. So anyway, so long story short, that tour was my big break, and it came from someone from college that recommended me, and then that person recommended me, and it just kind of, it was just one of those awesome things. So, and here at LACM, we have that culture that we are constantly seeking out how to plug students in for great opportunities. And I also do some contracting. What I do, the way I describe it, I create on the keyboard. I songwrite, I produce for TV and film. I am a musical director for certain things. I contract projects. I contract musicians for projects, and have contracted students for projects too. I have I what else? I do keyboard programming. I am a session player in the studio or remotely. I got into touring with artists, and after the Smashing Pumpkins, that just seemed to be what I fell into, and I learned how to do some keyboard programming things on that tour. But I learned a lot more after that tour. I wish I had known more on that tour. In fact, I feel so lucky that I got to have that experience. So then I was touring a lot after that, with a bunch of different artists, playing arena tours, playing theater tours with artists that were opening for bigger artists. I was out a lot with Adam Lambert and Kesha when she first started out, and then this artist that was opening for the Black Eyed Peas for the last thing they did, and I got really depressed. As much as I loved performing and I loved touring, there was an emptiness in my heart because I knew I had the heart of a writer. I made a decision that none of my touring friends understood because my career was going really well at the time, and I just had to make this decision that I was going to stay in town, and I knew that if I went out on the road, I wasn't going to be as focused on making a songwriting career happen here in LA, and I knew LA was where that would happen for me. So so I got off the road. My friends thought I was crazy. Some of them kind of stopped talking to me for a minute because I was so uncool. And I was turning down tours that people would have killed to do. I was teaching, and teaching was the most amazing thing that I could have done at the time, because for some reason, I was given these opportunities to teach songs about singing and accompaniment, and and songwriting, and in having to teach that, it helped me get myself in that frame of mind to ask myself what I needed to learn and what I still didn't know and what I wanted to know. And so I kept writing, kept writing, kept writing, and then I got a desk job. And when my boss would go get coffee or go get lunch, I would go tick, 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 and I would look and see. I would just constantly research how to plug myself in as a writer, who I could co-write with. I knew I was with ASCAP, reaching out to them to connect me with people to write with. And what I really wanted was to get involved in TV and film. So I started to kind of get, I started just creating a lot of content. It was such a good time for me. And then I met my husband and writing partner, and we weren't collaborating together musically, but we ended up accidentally creating together on this project that we had no idea the gravity of the project. And I had this feeling, we were driving together one day, and I had this feeling that I should call this person that I had been working with, and we were doing, he got a little song that I had done placed in a movie trailer for a Miley Cyrus movie called The Last Song. I think it came out in like 2009. So that was my first big sync, and I was like so excited. I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to use the keyboard to create my own music. So I felt like I should make this phone call to this person that had got me that song in that Miley Cyrus movie trailer. And I said, I had this weird feeling that I need to ask you, do you have a job for me? Do you have something that you need me to do? I know that sounds really weird, but I just had this feeling like I was supposed to call you. And he said, oh, I can't think of anything. He said, but always good to check. And then he said, oh, actually, and then he gave the phone. He was with an executive at Warner Brothers at the time in the car, and she had just been telling him about how she needed a song called "Everything Is Awesome" for the Lego Movie. Long story short, the Lego Movie happened with my partner, and that was a big open door for us. That just became the bulk of what we were doing every day, songwriting and producing. And then I would do occasional sessions as a keyboard player, stuff like that, contracting. Now we're doing a lot of stuff for Fox. We just wrote the theme song for The Masked Singer, which is a show on Fox with like these ridiculous animal costumes. And if you haven't seen it, you have to see it. It's actually really addictive and really cool. And then I have a side project that's my other little musical baby with my husband, where we have no creative limits, and that's our band called Little Danger. And we have, oh, look at that, that's so cool. We are releasing our first single on July 9th, and we are so excited. It's called Brand New World, and it is so where our hearts are at right now, because I know it's such a tumultuous time in the world, and it's a very hopeful song, and we're excited to release that. Okay, going on. That was my long history. Are you still with me? Okay, so talking about a career as a keyboard player. As you can tell, my career's been a little varied. From session playing, to performing, to touring. Now, let's talk about those things. As a session player, especially right now, so building your dream keyboard career at home. Right now is a great time if you don't have a DAW, if you or maybe you're even starting on a more basic DAW like GarageBand. Whatever you have at home, use it to the best of your ability and become a student of that DAW. Learn everything you can about how to use it to the best of your ability. If that's GarageBand, watch as many GarageBand tutorials as you can. If it's Logic, man, there's so many really, really great tutorials out there. And I'm still learning. There's still things where I think, I wonder if it's possible for me to do this. And then I'll look it up, and sure enough, there's some amazing techie person that knows exactly how to do that thing, and then it just makes your workflow so much smoother. But the reason you want to know a DAW is because, and especially in times like this, you want to be a versatile musician that can record from home, and you want to be able to know how to record from home at a high level. And for a keyboard player, part of what that means is learning keyboard language. And what I mean by that is learning the different types of sounds that are required of you to know as a keyboard player. And for us, we need to learn how to voice like a string player. We need to learn how to make those strings sound realistic. How do you do that? We need to know, if we're recording at home, how to edit MIDI so that the strings sound more realistic. And same with brass instruments, organ, Wurlitzer. My Wurlitzer is, wait, that way, is right there. and there have even been gigs where I've been asked to play like an auxiliary guitar part, and I always feel so insecure on those. But just studying the different instruments that are the biggies, and learning. Maybe get Mainstage. Mainstage is an incredible program, and it's a program that we use in our piano program for keyboard programming. And there is an incredible amount of built-in instruments that you can use. And if you know Logic or even GarageBand, it's really intuitive. And you can make like a set list, which is so cool. So I could just press one button and it puts it in this mode where all of the songs I need for this performance are all in order, in the set order. Press one button and it pulls up the next sounds, which might be split. I might have piano for this one octave, and then I might have strings here, organ here. Depending on the gig, I might split my keyboard sounds into multiple sounds for that one performance. Or I might even be triggering tracks for the performance. If I'm the musical director especially, that's something I do live a lot. So that's session playing. So having the capability and the ability to record at home is huge, and now is the perfect time to focus on that skill and hone that skill. And those are my dogs barking. They're upstairs being naughty. Let's move on to performing and touring. So for touring and performing, being able to have a go-to set lists of sounds, like these are my favorite pizzicato strings. Those are the strings that boom, 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 the short, the quick attack strings. These are my favorite types of organs. Oh, this is my favorite farfisa organ sound. Or having those sounds and really knowing how to play them, knowing the register, the range in which they sound good on the keyboard is so important too, because you might find, wow, a farfisa organ way up here is going to be real, it can be really strident. Maybe I need to adjust the EQ there. That might be something I need to do. Or I love this pizzicato sound, but I feel like maybe I might want to brighten it up a little bit so that it cuts through the mix and is heard a little bit more in this particular musical instance. And some of these decisions, you can be making on the fly, with an artist, or for your own project. Going on to other kind of musical paths for the keyboard player. You can be a musical director for live performance, for touring. You can, and what's entailed in being a musical director is you've got to have great people skills. You've got to know how to get the best out of people, and you've got to know how to be calm under pressure, when everybody needs something from you at the same time and is relying on you, and you're on live television, and the artist, you realize the artist isn't hearing this, certain things are happening. You need to be great with interfacing with the artist and to understand how to deal with eccentric personalities. Many artists are. And also, you need to know how to interface with managers, music execs. I was musical directing for a movie called Gem and the Holograms. And there was a promo tour that they had planned for the music. It was a musical. And there was a promo tour with the actresses from the movie, who some of them were more experienced singers than others. And then there was the head of, that's when I met Mike Knobloch from Universal, who's like the head guy for film, for music. And so you have to know how to deal. Sometimes the artists are inexperienced, or sometimes the managers or the music execs will want something that the artist doesn't want. so sometimes there's that push and pull. And then there's the band you have to worry about. And oftentimes you have a talkback mic that, because as it's so common today that artists have their in-ear monitors in, and they are sometimes relying on click on your voice to say, okay, you ready for the next one? And for this one cue, you know that you better not start the track until that artist is ready, or they will kill you. So that's just a little bit about musical directing. It's so fun. It's high pressure. It's very lucrative too. Oftentimes the musical director can make, I don't know, sometimes double what everyone else makes, and rightly so, because they work very hard. I've worked with some incredible musical directors. Chris Pooley is one. He is so brilliant. And he is, like, in my mind, like the epitome of what a musical director should be in terms of being such a brilliant musician, and being able to interface with the artists and the executives and bringing out the best of the ensemble. And he's a brilliant creative arranger on top of that. He's just a brilliant guy. He did the Super Bowl, the Katy Perry Super Bowl music, and I thought those arrangements were so clever. Other career paths going on. You can teach. Teaching is a gift. Teaching is, and it's a special calling, and it's something that I am so passionate about. My father is a gifted teacher. My grandmother was a gifted teacher, and I find it so rewarding talking with you guys today, working one-on-one with my students, seeing the light bulb go on for somebody. It is one of the greatest feelings in the world. And in fact, one of our classes, one of our core classes in the piano program is called Piano Pedagogy, and it's taught by one of our incredible faculty members, Morgan Jones, and he talks about how to build a successful piano studio. And I know a lot of our students found it really rewarding, and didn't realize just how to take those steps to do that. And they got a lot out of the class. And again, I wish I'd had a class like that. I built a little piano studio to help pay my way through college. That's how I got started. And I started teaching little children, like Twinkle Little Star and stuff like that. And then I just developed my business. But he talks about developing the business end, and then also talks about teaching techniques as well, which is really helpful. And I know our students got a lot out of that. You can also be a songwriter. You can write songs with lyrics and melody. You can write them for artists, for TV and film, for yourself. as an artist for yourself for TV and film. You can compose for film scores, or for TV, music without lyrics, and you can produce. So many of our piano students here are interested in not just reading music on the page, but interpreting music. And I think that's such an important part of what we strive to do at LACM. We don't want to just turn out cookie cutter musicians. We want to turn out artists across the board in our programs, and musicians that are creative and understand what they bring to the industry, so that they can know not only how to navigate it, but be successful in where they go, because not only do they know what they bring, but they know how to navigate those situations and what those situations require, because they learned it in school. And again, I wish that I had. I learned literally from like just bumping my head against the wall, doing the wrong thing, and then doing the right thing occasionally. But so songwriting, composing, producing. I do a lot of songwriting for TV, for film, for artists, for personal projects, and I will say it is so much fun. But in order to get to that point, I had to really get inside my DAW and really learn how to use it. And it's almost like another instrument. And when you reach a level of mastery where you can just create without having to go, oh, how do I do this again? It is so rewarding and incredible. And in our fast-paced music industry, it's often required that, especially for the TV film world, it's often required that, something be turned in same day or next day, which either means you submit something you already created, or you create it from scratch, write it, produce it, and get it done quickly. There are situations where we have a lot of time, like if I get like the Smurfs is looking for a new theme song, or for a new version or something like that, then oftentimes we have more time. But it often moves really fast. That world is... Here's some other jobs. You could be a mixing engineer. You could be a keyboard programmer. When I was with the Smashing Pumpkins, Billy knew that I had like 0 programming chops. And he was using this really complicated rack. I forget. I think it was made by Sound Electronics. It was an analog rack unit. And it was complicated as hell. It was really hard to figure out. So he had someone that was a programmer from the company come to Chicago, where we were having production rehearsals, and try to teach me how to use it and help program some of the sounds that were on the recording. And I was learning, I'm trying to think how many songs. I had like 3 weeks to learn like 100 songs. It was like song boot camp. So I was learning the songs and transcribing the string arrangements for a lot of Billy's more iconic songs like Disarm and what's the other one? I can't think of it. Tonight. You can also be a contractor for sessions, which means you are, and oftentimes, for me anyway, my experience was when I was the musical director, that was part of your job, was hiring the musicians. And every now and then you get hired kind of as a separate thing, and the musicians are already on board. But in my experience, most times I was asked to do that job because they wanted me to find the band as well. And sometimes that means you're part of an audition process. And there's a gentleman named Barry Squire, who I know the school is affiliated with, and he is a big time contractor for musicians. And in fact, after I got the Smashing Pumpkins gig, later when I got more into touring, that's when I met him. And he said to me, I was wondering who you were, because you were kind of I'd never heard of you like in the touring world. And he is like one of the big contractors that kind of does that thing and helps find bands for tours. So anyway, And that's a job that is a very, very important job. And there are so many more too. There's, as you can see, there's so many aspects of the music industry you can get involved in. And I want to talk about how to prepare. First of all, does anyone have any questions for me right now? Okay, did you ever feel trapped on how to progress your own compositions? And if you did, how are you able to resolve it? Yes, it's called writer's block. Totally, that's so common. Yes, yes, yes. The way that I navigate through that, and it happens all the time, where we'll be writing something and we reach a point where we're not sure where to go next. And one of the main tools that I use is contrast. If ever I don't know where to go next, I look at where I've been. If where I've been is a very, very rhythmically active section, with a very rhythmically active, adventurous melody, then I think, what could I do that would contrast that? Something very sustained, something very, hold on a second, I'm so sorry. Sorry, Orlando. After a section like that, if it's super rhythmically active, I will just sometimes play something very sustained, or something very, or entertain the idea of something that's very simple. You know, and then if it's something that has a very, if you look at, I call it storyboarding, which is, that's what I call it, but oftentimes I'll take, if it's a song that has lyrics, these are my notes for you guys today. I'm a nerd and I make a lot of notes. What I'll do is, next each section, if it's a song with lyrics, then I'll make a little storyboard next to the verse, and I will write a summary. I call it storyboarding, but what I do is I write a little summary of each section, and the summary is what it is that I'm saying, that it's a summary of what the lyric is. And I'll write like, okay, I introduce the main character. And then the pre-chorus, I write, okay, this is where I introduce the main character is struggling with such and such. And then if I'm stuck on the chorus, then if I'm looking at where I've been and what I've said, what have I not said? How can I contrast that, or how can I develop that further? What is the main character going to do about it? That's interesting. So I can do that with lyrics. You can do that with melodic content. You could storyboard. You could say, for example, you could analyze the harmonic, the melodic movement of your piece. And sometimes I'll write, okay, very monotone melody, in a minor mode. Then on the pre-chorus, I might say, what could I do on the pre-chorus? If I don't know where to go, if I've just come from some place that's very monotone, melodically, then I'm probably, by the pre-chorus, I'm going to want to expand that a little bit. You could contrast that a lot, or even just a little bit, with a melody that is more adventurous, a melody that takes bigger leaps, bigger musical distances between the notes, bigger intervallic jumps. And that's something that always gets me out of a jam. Another thing that I do, if it's a lyrical thing that I'm struggling with, and if I don't know what to say next, oftentimes I'll ask myself questions about what I've said so far after I've storyboarded, and I'll say, okay, what does it look like when, I might say, okay, this entire section is talking about how the character feels. Maybe, and there's so many feeling words, maybe on the chorus we completely contrast and talk about, get into more imagery. What do those feelings look like, right? That's kind of an interesting way to look at it. Does that answer your question? I hope that helps a little bit. Those are some things that I do, and those are things that I definitely work on with my students all the time. You can always find me on Instagram if you ever have any questions or want to know. Oh, thank you. If you want to know more about the program, or if there's anything I can do to assist you on your journey, I am happy to do so. I am so grateful for the people that did that for me along the way, and those touchstones that are still in my life. So please reach out on Instagram. I'm there all the time. And I'm happy to tell you more about the program here at the school. I am intimately involved in designing curriculum. So how do we prepare to build our dream keyboard career? One of the things that I do with my students on the first day is, and I got this from my dad, because my dad and I we would have these strategy sessions about learning certain things. My dad, being a film composer, he would teach me a lot of things about orchestration, and he would draw a circle and would talk about and he would just say, "Tell me everything you want to know so I can understand how to help you." And I would ask him all the questions, and he would have them, okay. And he would look for links between the questions and try to get a sense of the aspects of composition that I was interested in, or the holes in my understanding. Okay, great question, David, and I'm going to come back to this. Okay, it's so great to have you on board as the department head for keyboards, and I'm wondering if there are any things you are focused on for the ever-evolving keyboard career. Yes, definitely. I'm always trying to stay current on gear. That's something that I try to be in the know about. And there are so many different kinds of software that I'm constantly checking out, constantly trying to learn. This is called an Expressive E. It's a French company, and it's called the Touche. And it is a little controller where you can manipulate the sound of, forgive me, I have another computer here. You can manipulate the audio and set whatever parameters you want. And unfortunately, I don't have it plugged in right now, but I have a different device that kind of does the same thing. I don't know if you could see it. This is called the Roly. Hold on a second. So sorry. There we go. It's called the Roly, and where is it? I think it's this one. And one thing that I always wanted to know when I was early in my piano journey was what happens in between the notes. Like, what happens between... Oh, cool. I forgot that this was on that side. Like, what happens in between the half steps, right? Because you know how guitar players can get in between those notes. And then this instrument happened, and I called the company and I said, "You will never find anyone more passionate about this instrument. Let me be a beta tester for you." So I did. And then I ended up performing at the NAMM show before Stevie Wonder. I've never been more nervous in my life. But anyway, this is a piece of gear along those lines as far as things that I'm always learning and trying to get up to date on all the newest instruments. And this is a way that you could be a guitar player. You can play strings and make them sound even more realistic in a recording and live scenarios. And it's just so fun. I use it to... It's just so cool that... Because on the piano, I mean, you can only be so expressive, right? You know, but it's really fun to be able to affect the vibrato. You know, but it's getting in between the notes is a totally different thing. So that's something I'm really passionate about. And I'm also, believe it or not, I'm getting really into playing around with samples. That's something that I'm really having fun with. I don't know if you guys know about Splice, but sometimes I will just pull up a sample and play to it, and it will bring up this whole other layer of creativity, because I'm playing to, because there are the things that we know and the things that, like when I sit down, I go to something that I know oftentimes first, but it's really cool to put yourself in a different musical context and to play in that way. The other things that I am constantly trying to learn about is the keyboard sounds. Like when I was first learning, oh yay, that's called the Rolly. Thank you for listing that. And it's such an incredible company. They have so many creative products that are seriously game changing. It just changes the way you create as a keyboard player, because there's so many more possibilities for expression. I actually have a big one over there, sorry, but right on top of my Wurlitzer. I don't know if you could see it. It's hard to turn this because I have a second monitor. Yay! I don't know if you could see it, but it's on top of my Wurlitzer there. Anyway, I hope that answers the question, David. But that's what I've been really getting into, just software and keyboard sounds. I'm constantly studying, like whether it's Talk by Khalid, where is it? What is that progression? Oh gosh, how's it go? I forget. I forget how it goes. But that really cool keyboard sound, I'll listen to it and I'll think, okay, how did they construct that sound, and what are the layers there, and how do I copy that sound, or sometimes how do I complement it? That's another big part of being a keyboard player is that. Anyway, back to this. So things that you can do to practical things you can do at home right now when we're all home more than normal, and we still have our goals, our hopes and dreams, and how do we make those a reality, right? So one of the best things that you can do is write down the areas in the music industry that you are most passionate about, right? Write them down. Write down what it is, like which aspects you're interested in, like which things that spoke to you today. If it's okay, I know I want to play jazz, but I know I want to songwrite, and I know I'm interested in maybe writing for TV and film, and I'm probably also interested in production or whatever it is. Then once we know what those goals are, then we can go in and expand upon that. What are the things you would need to know as a songwriter, as a jazz musician, as a producer? What are those things? One of the things that I want to stress more than anything is the importance of craft, and especially I know that we live in a day and age where information is so at the ready, and like I mentioned earlier, if I don't know how to do something in this DAW, or if I'm using Josh's DAW, he uses Cubase, and I use Logic. I'm just comfy, and I don't want to switch. But if I'm at his station and I'm editing MIDI and I forget how to do something, you can Google it really quick, right? You can find out a lot of things that you want to know. However, when it comes to really deeply understanding music, you have to be a lifelong student, and you have to be so passionate about the craft. And a big part of that is listening. And if you know that you want to learn a certain style, or if you want to write for TV and film, what are the TV shows that you where you watch the TV show, become a student of those TV shows. Like, which TV shows use music that you think suits what you do and what you bring, right? Make a list of those TV shows. Stay till the end of the episode. Who are the music supervisors for those shows? Music supervisors are the ones that choose, they curate the music for the TV show or for the movie. And find out who they are, and just make a little list for yourself and go, okay, because obviously, you know, you want to get a sense of what places in the music industry, where you could fit in there. Also, if you are looking to get a big break in the music industry, one of the best approaches and mentalities you can have is, how can I be of service? One of the biggest mistakes that I made as a young musician was I was so focused on, why am I not getting a publishing deal right now? Why am I not getting this thing? I'm talented enough. Why am I not? And I know that person is the head of HBO, blah, 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 blah. How do I get this from him so I could get, it's so, and a big part of you know, what we do as business people is we strategize, right? But a big thing that I would say is, think about how you can serve. Think about how you can help. Instead of thinking about what you can get from somebody, think about what you can bring. That has a totally different energy. And one of the things that you will notice that you start manifesting is people and execs will be more drawn to that type of energy, and you will find that you become indispensable to people. There's one exec that I was working with, and there was something in particular that I wanted from this relationship from the get-go. Something that I wanted, a personal goal, a dream of mine, and it hasn't happened yet. But I keep showing up and trying to just give what is needed, and always do a good job, always have a good attitude, and always submit things on time and be professional. And that is the most important thing, because that attitude will keep people coming around. It will keep you working. And let's talk about craft. Craft, when you have spent and put in your hundreds and hundreds of hours, whether that's learning your scales, learning how to sight read, even if you think you'll never use it, I use it all the time, whether I'm performing with Andrea Bocelli and David Foster at the Emmy Awards or something like that, playing an auxiliary flute part on the keyboard, just because they were short flute players that day. I don't remember why. I played a lot of things that night. But anyway, whether it's sight reading, your scales, whatever it is, even if it seems not as sexy or exciting as what you could do at the end result here, you have to remember and take pride and take joy in the craft. That's the best thing you can do right now at home, is to take pride in that, and that might mean sacrificing a little time over here doing this, or doing video games, or doing whatever it is that you know, if you put that extra energy into this, you know, when the quarantine lifts and the world all returns to working order, you know, you will be ready. And it's one of those things where your craft will get you through the times when you don't have inspiration. Sometimes you can lean on your craft. A great example of that is, I had to write I had an assignment to write some songs for a network. I had to submit some songs. They're called comedy tracks. They're for promo, and I received that assignment in the middle of a pandemic. My mom was diagnosed with cancer. It was just a really, really heavy, hard time. And I had to write these comedy tracks. They call them comedy tracks, but what they really are is very happy, upbeat tracks that can be used in promo sequences to show like all the best shows on, like, you know, the blah 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 network, like, you know, and they string them all together, and the song that underscores that. So, and for the first few days I could hardly focus, I could hardly concentrate, but it was the craft and the skill that I leaned on, because I did not have the inspiration. So I just thought, okay, what are the musical references that they gave? What is it that they need? So I just started jotting down song ideas, and I didn't feel inspired about any of them. It wasn't until we got a little deeper into it that we got inspired. At that time, all I wanted to write about was the pain I was feeling and going through. So all that said, craft got me through, and the skill set that I have, I was leaning on that when inspiration was not there. and another way that can manifest is the craft can free you to be the most inspired you've ever been. Because if you're not thinking about, oh, what is this scale or what is this tonality, you can create by closing your eyes. You can create something that you love without even thinking about it. And it could be something that you could create something that you know, for those times where, you know, you want to be moved by creativity, when you have honed your craft, you are limitless, and you don't have to stop and go, what key am I in, or what. You don't have to think about any of the basics, because you put in that time, and that time is so valuable, and do not cut it short. Now is the time to do that, especially now. One of the best things for lyrics is I keep a little note in my phone, and I write down phrases that are interesting to me. I write down things someone says that really inspire me. I was talking to a friend, and we were joking around. We were having a beer, and we said, well, there's a last time for everything. And then I was like, oh, I gotta write this down. So I wrote it down, and I said, we're gonna write this song one day. And then there was another friend that said, he was complaining about, it was a manager friend of mine, he was complaining about an artist he was working for that was really difficult to work with. And he said, I dare you to let me go. You know. And I wrote that down because I thought that was so cool. And I said, we have to write this song. And we actually did. It's amazing. So that's my first tip, is write down, be an observer. If you struggle with lyrics, I find people that struggle with lyrics oftentimes struggle with the imagery part, talking about describing in a visual way. Electric Love by an artist named Borns. I'm trying to pull up the lyric. It's so cool. And again, this is something I do with my students all the time. We'll pull up a lyric and we'll just storyboard it. We'll summarize what he's saying in every stanza. And it'll be so helpful because we'll get to learn the techniques that this artist is using. Candy, she's sweet like candy in my veins. How cool is that? because you would expect me to say sweet like candy in my mouth, but sweet like candy in my veins. Like it's sweet going in. It's such a cool way to say that. And we have an instant visual, right? So my thought is if my dogs are crazy upstairs. If visuals are something that you struggle with, really study writers that do that well. For me, the struggle is always the ending, and I don't know why, or the bridge. Oh, sure, both musically and lyric wise. Yeah, 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 yeah. Um, so for the bridge, now there are some songs where I write the song and I don't feel like it needs a bridge. Um, sometimes sometimes it's better not to force it if that is not where your song is headed. But if you do have that feeling, like there's that section and you're having that feeling like there's something missing or someplace that I'm wanting to go, but I have no idea where it is, or someplace I'm needing to go and I don't know where that is, contrast. That is, I go in my tool belt and I go, okay, first let me understand what's happening and how can your bridge contrast if you've had, maybe you've got tons of lyrics in the section that precedes it or follows it. Maybe have your bridge have no words. Maybe it's just ooh, you know? Maybe that's it, and that's okay. Maybe it's just a simple melody, and maybe what your song needs in that moment is to breathe. Um, or conversely, maybe maybe it needs something unconventional, like spoken word there, or maybe it needs another thing that's so helpful is to think about what you can remove. Um, that is something that I'll often entertain in lessons with students. Like we'll look we'll listen to a song and we'll think, maybe one of the best ways to contrast this section is for everything to cut out, like everything. And you can have that somber moment of just a chord, one chord, or maybe it's even a drone, maybe it's even like a, or a hum, or something really simple like that. Both musically and lyric wise. Yes, lyric wise. For lyrics, I would ask yourself the question, and these are things that when I don't have to think about them, I just use these tools and go like in the moment when I need them. But before, I would write these questions out because they would help me get out of a jam. And one of the questions that I'm like a post-it nerd, and I would post it my workspace with these questions so I could reference back to them because they helped me. And one of the questions that always gets me out of a jam with lyrical blocks is, what is the perspective that we have not explored yet? Who haven't we heard from in this story? That's really important. If it's oftentimes with young writers, I find that the perspective is very much one-sided, and it's usually the first songs we write are usually about our personal experience, right? And this is what happened to me, and this is what you did to me, and this is how it made me feel, and a really helpful way to spark a new kind of creativity is to ask, what was the other person thinking when that happened? You know, what might have been going through their mind, you know? There's a song that I reference all the time along these lines called Trade Hearts by Julia Michaels. It's not one of her most famous songs, but it's the most simple chorus. And she says, how's it go? I wish I could trade hearts with you. So I wish I could trade hearts with you so I could feel the same way you do. But the melody is, so it's a super simple lyric, And it's so something that we've all felt. Like, I wish I could either understand where you're coming from because you're driving me crazy, or I don't know what's going through your head, or there's a disconnect. So it's such a cool way to say it. I wish I could trade hearts. Or normally we would say, like, I wish I could trade places with you, or like walk a mile in your shoes or in my shoes. But I just thought that was really, really cool. Another cool thing with lyrics is to think of, you're welcome, to think about how to take something, an everyday phrase, and see how you can change it. That's a great example of it. Trade hearts. Normally we would say trade places, but in a song you could say all kinds of things. There's an old song. It's not that old. I can't remember. It's like from the 80s or no, I'm so off. It's Tony Braxton. Do you guys remember the "Unbreak My Heart"? Do you remember that song? Now, we would say, "Don't break my heart," but she said, "Unbreak it." Like, it's so cool. It's not really the way we would say it. Like if I'm having a conversation with you, but that's such a clever way to experiment with words and language and songwriting. You can take those chances and you can create a word that wasn't a word before. And granted, you want to be careful with it because, you want it to make sense to other people too, so that they could be moved by it and get it. But the "unbreak my heart" sort of implies, oh, her heart was, you already broke my heart. So take it back. Like, forgive me, guys. Undo it, Anyway, I'll play the sweet one I was telling you about. Okay, so this is it. This is something for that. It was a campaign for Fox about celebrating all the frontline workers. And it's just a little piece of the song.
Thank you
to all the first responders,
grocery store workers, truck drivers,
medical professionals,
for keeping us safe.
Everyone working on the front lines
During this difficult time.
And you can say thank you
by lighting a candle every night at 8 p.m. in their honor.
Join us.
Thank you.
Isn't that sweet? I love that. That was a fun one. That's just like a little clip of an inspirational song. And again, I'm playing the string parts. I'm imagining a string arrangement. And they wanted something cinematic. And as you notice, there's very minimal lyrics. And oftentimes for when you're writing for TV and film, I keep the lyrics real simple, depending on what the brief is, depending on what's asked. Speaking of writing tips, voice memo every idea. Don't take for granted that you're going to remember anything. I voice memo all my ideas. Here is, have you guys seen the Masked Singer TV show? It's okay if you haven't. I had a little voice memo that I took of this little stupid idea that I thought, I don't even know what this would be good for, but I'll show you what it was good for. So I had a voice memo, and I was somewhere in a bathroom on an airplane. I don't remember, but I sang it in, and I went, boop, 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 boo, doo-doo-doo, doo-doo-doo, boop, 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 boo-doo. And this will be the last thing I'll play for you guys today. This little bum, 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 bum turned into the theme for The Masked Singer. Somehow, I don't know how, but it did. Let me try, I'll test that theory and see. This is a video. I'm gonna screen share again, and let me see. I'm gonna see if I did it right. I'm gonna click on, this should do it, guys. Here it is. This should do it. Okay.
Won't you stay with me?
Woo! It's working.
All I need.
I want to date you. I love you so much.
I have no idea who any of these singers are.
Do you hear it?
Some of them may be friends. Some of them I may have married. You never know.
This season, everyone will be asking.
It's just one simple melody repeating.
Behind
My heart is pumping out of my chest.
the mask.
And then notice when it repeats again, because we've heard it so many dumb times. Oh, that time we're going to give it to you with heavy brass, or this time we're going to give it to you with different percussion, or this time we're going to give it to you. Does that make sense? So when we're working for TV and film, that's something we always do. Guys, I'm going to try one more thing here. You love it, yay! It was fun to work on. It was such a fun show, and when we watch it, we hear our theme song all the time. Go. This is what I tried to play for you before and failed miserably. Here we go. It's working! Okay, this is what I was trying to describe before, this super cinematic intro. With like brass sounds that have like nasty distortion on them and these like reverse delays. And this little keyboard that sounds like it's underwater on the bottom. Just texture. It's really cool. And that's my husband on vocals. Wow, this must have been really boring before when you couldn't hear the music. Okay, here comes like the song is hitting now. Here we go. So really keyboard heavy. And then everything drops out. All of that thick texture. So we have a break.
Look back.
Then we're building a little with a little keyboard line.
Hyperbolic emotion. Shadow of my beast belly comes. Work is never done. Can't turn it off, can't look away, can't run.
And then as you can see, big chorus here.
Heartbeat digital. Heartbreak critical.
And this is the part I was describing before with the ahs and how that was one of those situations where we just knew we weren't done yet and we wanted that chorus again, but not with those lyrics. So anyway, that's a little bit of that song from my project Little Danger, and that's the one that we're releasing in July 9th. This is that song I was going to play for you last time. It was on a TV show. They liked it so much they used it like 3 weeks in a row. It's for a really emotional scene. And this is a song that I was at a writing camp in Hawaii. It was so beautiful. And we came up with this. We had never met each other, and we all just started crying when we wrote this. It was pretty amazing. This is called Do We Let Go? This one also has a long intro. We wrote it with a particular music supervisor in mind. His name is Chris Malaire.
Days go slow, the years go fast. What's good never seems to last. He's a shape, a shadow cast. Questions I'm afraid to ask.
Do you hear that piano? So simple. Sometimes that's all that's required.
waiting here in your ocean, fading, sailing here in a nightmare. Wake me, wake me. Whoa. If we could hold on, if we could just hold on.
It was so great spending time with you guys. Oh, my pleasure. This was so fun. Guys, I know that we're all home and things are a little bit uncomfortable right now in the world, but we all have each other and we all have our love for music, and we have our craft, and we're all passionate about the same thing. And I want you to know you're not alone. Your LACM family is here for you, and we're here to inspire you and help you create and to be the best musician you could possibly be. And you have my email. We will stay in touch, and I will see you guys soon. I will do this again. Okay, so great to meet you guys. Have an awesome rest of your day, okay? Okay, bye.